So you met this person next to here, which means this and that. Yes? So yeah, we're talking about missing, which I'm just gonna fully boop, boop. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And missing. Which is one of these sort of shows where I think there's not many of them where the whole thing takes place on a computer screen. And I like, because it's basically his password, here's this. You also see people being like, I'm searching this, and then hesitate, and then carry on or not do it, which I like. I also like the idea of like looking into the Facebook, looking into this, looking into like, what does this mean and what does that mean and why do any of this matters. And I like how good, and this is obvious, but I'm not going to talk about who it is. I like how there's obvious like misdirect or like this happening and that happening, and it's like oh, this gives a misdirect, and like the misdirects are like, oh, that makes sense, and like when you find out who actually did it, it's like, what? It's still really interesting, and so like I legitimately didn't see what the actual twist was. And I didn't see it coming. And some of the moments I thought were like really insane, in my opinion. But yeah. So yeah, one of the big things about the mystery is you have a couple of things. So let's talk about sort of like how we learn it one by one, which is one. The main mystery is first trying to figure out what's happened, because they just don't show up. They should have come on holiday to this event, and they don't know what's happened overall. Or like, oh, she didn't show up, and it's like, okay, let's call these people. They call them, and it's like, oh yeah, this is happening. And then they looked at the CCTV footage, they get someone from the area, and they try and like find some more information about it, which I think is really interesting. Which I absolutely find amazing. A couple of things which I like, which a couple of the characters come up with while that's happening, is one, I love the idea, I don't know if it's actually a thing, there's like these live cameras that project. I don't know if that's an actual thing, but I love that they use that to be like, oh, this person was here and they were proposing. And I like the fact that they bought a lock and it's like, what? And then it's like, oh wait, it's one of those things where like you can go to a bridge and then you can lock it to represent love. It wasn't in this area, but there's a similar bridge, I think, in Venice, because it was above a road, the one that they used. But there's a similar bridge in, like, Venice. Not Venice. Where is it? I think it's, like, in France somewhere. But there's probably, like, a lot of these where, like, you go to the bridge and you lock representing love. I know there's one in... The one that I'm thinking of actually is in Paris, because it was in Now You See Me, the first one. I also love the idea that eventually... the idea goes to the person before that is like what happens eventually. You get these people being like, oh, they bought something at this sort of like location, and we can sort of use that to like track where they are. And there's so many shops, because that's not a shop, it's a location of shops. And then one person realizes, yeah, but you probably couldn't get the exact information, but there was probably like a code that's probably like what the item they bought was. And it's like, yeah, I can just buy gum from each one of the stores and we can see which one matches that purchase code. I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that as like an idea being like, oh, we're going to look at this purchase code, put it in, and see what comes up from it, see what we can get, see what information we can obtain. I'm like, that's smart. That's big brain. There's a lot of moments where it's like, the other one which I like is one of the things that happens is one of the photos is live, which basically means you have a photo, but you also have a couple seconds before and after, which I think is like really good. But I like the idea that, one, I think you can turn that off. Why would you have that on if the whole thing is you're meant to fake the fact that you got kidnapped in another country, which instead happened is that you got kidnapped in this country, so it's laws off your hand. I also like the idea that eventually they have this actor, that's a whole fun thing, being like, what? And the way that they figure out this thing is you look at the live photo, I forgot I mentioned this, the live photo plays and carries on, it's like, wait, no, that's not the right person, which, again, recommendation, why did you have it on in the first place? And then they're like, oh, we can look for this person, tracking information, this, that, the other. And when you slowly learn more and more, definitely when you learn one of the people were Paul, there was this lawyer person that came in the background being like, oh, could you do this, could you do that, oh, we need to hire from them, being like, oh, they're here. And then she comes back being like, yeah, we're going to look into it, we're going to see what happens. And then she's somewhat also involved, which is really interesting. And again, it just becomes more and more detailed when they start bringing up the father. Because at the beginning, there's this scene that doesn't go on. It's like, oh, we're going to, like, oh, look, we've got this camera and it's fixed. It's like, oh, it's fixed now. And then, like, the mum takes the camera and it's like, and then you get this thing where it's like blood comes from their nose, and from that moment you cut off it from before the blood comes up, and then you add it into a folder. And the way that it somewhat looks, alongside the fact that they sort of like claim the father is dead, I like how it looks in a way that it looks like, oh, he sort of like had this like cancer. Because, like, having blood come from the nose or something like that, I wouldn't be surprised if that's, like, somewhat of a illness happened. And you died of an illness sort of stuff, right? And then when that happens, the blood comes from the nose, and then you carry on. And you realise the father was abusive. Because then most of it's happening through one camera. This character's camera. But then she gets kidnapped. And then you go through this CCTV footage that he has on his computer. Which also has a shot from him. And then at the last scene, just before it goes back to this character's camera, it's doing this fake show. And it looks like they're going to be like, oh, here's the live action scene. And then you just zoom out being like, yeah, it's a weird way how they did it on lives, right? Yeah. Like, do you know what? You need to sub way how to do it. Let's say this an in-canon TV show, which they did bring up earlier. I love that callback where it's like, you fake this part of the universe. Nope, this is the TV show. That was what that they did talk about earlier on in the entire movie. And that's funny. That's like a really fun thing that they did, being like, yeah, this is really overdone. Because, like, this character watches it earlier, and it's like, yay! And I like it. There's a lot of stuff about this show. Why am I keep saying show? Because I watch too many shows, obviously. That is fully a fact. But there's so much stuff about this that I think is, like, really good in this sort of way. But I think this is amazing. I love the characters, and I 100% recommend for you to watch it. Definitely. It is the one thing that I think is really good. So yeah, this is really good. I like it. I definitely think you should watch it. And overall, I think it's just really entertaining. So I would recommend it. I would recommend just watch it. Absolutely. Go and watch it. That's all I could say. But just go and watch it. And you can see how amazing this show is. Definitely it's one of the best ones of the screen that it does, because there's a couple others like Unfriended, which does exist with that format. But I think this is how you can do creative media. Do it through a computer screen. I don't know what else you can do through. Maybe like a phone, a movie through a phone. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you like. And I hope you subscribe and follow. And yeah. Good night.